Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Heart to Heart. My name is Madiha, and here with me today I have our esteemed guest, Sister Masuma Jaffer. She is a resident alima at Stanmore Mosque, and she's also got qualifications in counselling. She's counselled hundreds of individuals, families and couples on various issues and topics in her time. Heart to Heart is all about you as the viewer. You can email in with your questions, with your issues, with problems that you might be facing at home or at work. And Sister Masuma will try her best to help you tackle these issues in a religious and a practical manner. So thank you so much, Sister Masuma, for coming in today and taking time out to help tackle some of these issues. So we've had loads of people email in and give their questions and problems and issues. So I'm just going to go straight to the first one. Here I have someone that said, first of all, thank you for reading my problem. Since I was very young, I've always had these feelings of insecurity, especially when I'm in social situations. I keep thinking that people are talking about me or saying things about me when I leave the room. The truth is, I've never had much confidence, but recently, since starting university, it's gotten much worse. Should I leave university and get counselling? Should I travel? I just don't know what to do. I don't know if it's male or female, but it probably doesn't matter in this situation.
I think obviously there's a huge amount of low self-esteem and self-confidence in this person, which could arise from something that's happened in their childhood. Maybe it may be, it may be something that someone said to them, something that happened to them, which has made them feel less worthy. So I think counselling is very good, because if there is some underlying issue there, that will help resolve that. At least they can work on it. It may just be that they're introvert and they don't like to be the focal point, the focus in all situations, which is fine. And sometimes I think as introverts we tend to mix the two. So we think if you're an introvert you have less confidence, and that's not necessarily the case. As an introvert, I just don't like to be in the limelight. I'd rather be in the background, and that's fine, and it's being comfortable with that as well. Yeah. But this person actually talks about the fact that that when they come out of a situation they feel that people are talking about them. It seems like they really care about what other people think of them, and that's no way to live your life, because you're never going to have everyone on board. You're never going to have everyone being happy with you. The story of Luqman, where he tells us, he gives that example to his son, where they're walking in the desert, and Luqman, I think at one point his son is sitting on the donkey. They've got a donkey, and his son's sitting on the donkey. And people are, commenting on, how can a young boy sit on the donkey when his old father is walking by? Yeah. So they swap over, and then the father sits on the donkey, and then people comment on, how can an adult sit on the donkey when a young child is walking by? Yeah, yeah. So then they both get off, and then people comment on the fact that how silly are you? You've got donkey and you're not sitting on it. Yeah. So you're never going to get all the people happy with decisions you make, and I think that's why it's really important to whatever decision you make, whatever choices you make in life, they're God focused. Right. As long as God is happy,
the right thing.
Exactly. As long as God is happy, then you're sorted. You know that things will work out. It may not work out the way that you want them to work out, but it'll work out the best way possible, because you've done it with God in the picture. And the beauty of doing it with God in the picture is like whenever you make a decision, or whenever you try to do something, if you do it with the niyyah that it is for the pleasure of Allah, and you're trying to do it the way He wants you to do it, then the results really don't matter. Yeah, the results are on God.
You can have confidence in that. Okay.
So it's like when you're giving a lecture in front of people, as long as you ensure that you're doing it for the pleasure of Allah, not for the people, and you ensure that you do it, you prepare for it in the best possible way, and you've done it the way that God wants you to do it, then even if everyone doesn't like it, it really doesn't matter, because you've got the thawab for it, you've got the growth for it, you've got that closeness to Allah from it. So the results are really not important. When the results aren't important, then you're a lot more confident. It's when we think about us messing up that breaks our confidence. Right. The other thing maybe another perspective of, to look at it is, how egotistic are you that you think everyone is talking about you?
Yeah.
It's like the world does not revolve around you.
Yeah.
So, just from a different perspective to look at it from, it's like...
They probably aren't talking about you.
Yeah, it's like, why would you think they're talking about you?
Yeah.
And another perspective is that if they are talking about you, then you should go and thank them, because on the day of judgment, they're going to have to take some of your sins or give you some of their good deeds. So you're sorted. It's like, it's. I think it's just putting it into perspective and realizing that it's, I think you're making it a bigger thing than it is in your head. And even if it is what you're thinking it is, it's their problem, not yours. It's not your issue. She talks about, he or she, we don't know who it is, talks about leaving university and getting counselling. I don't know why the two are connected in their head.
Yeah, you can do both, right?
Yeah, you can stay in university and still get counselling. Why would you want to leave university? And then the next thing that they talk about is travelling. Now that is huge if you haven't got confidence to travel, because that's way out of your comfort zone. So it just seems like
it's not a solution to anxiety.
Exactly. I think it's like, oh, maybe they're thinking if they travel, they're away from the situation, but that situation will be there. There'll be people wherever they travel to, and the same situation will arise. So it's about dealing with the issues, if there are issues. Whether it's something from their childhood, whether it's lack of confidence because they themselves care too much what other people think. Even whether it's their lack of relationship with Allah, again, that will help build their confidence. So there's lots of different avenues that they can go down, and I think getting professional help would be probably the first step in helping them trying to figure out what the issue is.
Okay, thank you very much. This next person's emailed in and said, I'm really confused at this stage of my life. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I just want to feel free and live my life the way I want. I don't particularly like the hijab. I find my daily prayers a chore. I feel disconnected from God and think that religion is kind of pointless. But at the same time, I do want to be close to God, but in this day and age, it's so hard. Please, can you advise? Now that's quite a heavy email. And I think, on a personal level, I think we all go through sort of ups and downs of spirituality and closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and sometimes, on a personal level, hijab, I find it difficult. It's a difficult thing to do. And to observe it properly in the West, to the best of your ability, when you see everyone else, other people maybe not be observing it to the sort of level that you consider a good hijab, in inverted commas. It's difficult on a day-to-day level to observe it. So what would you say to this person, this girl?
I would actually ask a question to start off the conversation. I would ask the person, do they enjoy studying when it's exam time and having to give up, going out with their friends and socialising and watching movies and so forth?
That's a good question, You have to do it though.
Exactly, because you see the importance of the studying in order to get the exams. I think
what if you don't see the importance? What if you don't understand why?
I think that's what the problem is here.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that they don't understand why they're doing what they're doing, and so they don't see the point of it. So I think we need to go back to basics, where this person needs to understand Islam, not from a cultural perspective, but from a religious perspective, what Islam is about and what these rulings are about. And the problem is we're taught Islam from a very fiqh perspective. Do this, don't do this, wear hijab, pray namaz, don't drink alcohol, don't do drugs. It's very much do the
and don'ts. Yeah,
exactly. And what it does is it makes you feel, especially living in the West where everyone else is doing what you're not allowed to do, it makes you feel like you're in a prison and you're being stopped from doing everything and anything. Rather than looking at Islam as a fortress which is protecting you. If you were told that there's a sniper outside who's got a bullet with your name on it, and then you're told, okay, now you need to stay in this room, because if you go outside, the sniper's going to get you. You wouldn't feel this was a prison. You'd feel like it's a sanctuary. You feel like because it's protecting you, and that's what Islam is about. It's about protection rather than imprisoning. But it's changing that mindset, and the only way we can change that mindset is if we first and foremost, before we even look at the do's and don'ts, we need to build our relationship with God. I need to understand that God created me, and He created me as the soul, not the body. The body is not important. It's my soul that's important, and it's my soul that will continue on the journey once it leaves this body, it will be given another body. So it's understanding that I am my soul, first and foremost. Understanding that I don't know anything about my soul. I don't know how to take care of my soul. I don't know what my soul looks like. I really don't know. The only thing when I think about myself, I think about my body. When I look in the mirror, that's who I see as Massima, but that's not who I am. Because if, God forbid, I was involved in an accident and I lost my limbs, or I had to have plastic surgery or a facial reconstruction, I would still be Massima.
That's true, yeah.
So my body is just a vehicle that carries my soul. My body is not who I am.
And as you said earlier, even if, for example, I understand that I need to study to do well in my exams, to be able to get a job at the end of it and support myself, even though I understand that, doesn't mean I have to like it.
Yeah.
You still have to do it.
Exactly.
And that's even though
really
you know
important.
it's for your own good, you still have to do it because you know that it's
But you're
for
more
your
willing
own
to
good.
do it because you understand it.
Yeah.
So I think if we understand that the fiqh rules that are there, the wajib and haram, are not for the body, it's for the soul.
For the soul, yeah.
So when God tells you something is wajib, it's because it's absolutely needed for the soul.
Yeah.
When God tells you something is haram, it is absolutely detrimental to the soul. It may benefit the body, but the purpose is not for the body, it's for the soul. I'll give you a simple example, fasting. Most people, when they're asked by non-Muslims why they fast, will answer, it gives us empathy towards those who are poor. Yes, that's one of the benefits, but it's not the purpose of fasting, because if it was, then the poor people wouldn't have to fast.
Yeah.
Because they already know how it feels to be poor.
Yeah.
So it is one of the benefits. The purpose, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may, hopefully, inshallah, if you do it properly, get taqwa.
Okay.
Taqwa is to do with the soul's connection to Allah. That God consciousness is not done by the body, the physical body, is done by the soul. So it's really important to understand that the rulings are for the soul, and to understand that I don't know about my soul because I live in a physical world. I will concentrate on the physical body, and because God knew that, He gave me these rulings to take care of me, to take care of myself.
So if you're not seeing the sort of advantages or benefits, they are there.
Yes,
you just can't see them.
Yes, because I have limited knowledge, and my knowledge is based in the physical realm, with my experience of the physical realm.
Okay.
Whereas my soul is a spiritual entity, a spiritual being, which is very different to the physical realm. I know when I'm hungry, I know when I'm thirsty, I know when I'm tired, and that's why God's not dictated you have to eat 5 a day. He's not dictated to have 3 liters of water or have 8 hours of sleep, because He knows I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Because I know when when my body's hurting, when I've got, even when it's infection inside my body, which I can't see, I still know because I feel the pain.
Yeah.
Whereas when my soul is hurting, when my soul is ill, I have no idea.
And do you have any sort of tips and advice of, as I said, when I first asked this question to you, is we all go through sort of peaks and troughs of spirituality or religiosity, or however you want to frame it. Is there anything we can do to maintain sort of a minimum level of spirituality, on a daily basis? Would you recommend that you should do something or not do something, or how would you?
It's very important to make sure that the wajibats are done. Yeah. So,
but beyond that, even how would you?
I think beyond that will depend on your soul, and also realizing that the soul has, like you're saying, different, different tastes, different ups and downs. So just like, sometimes I feel like pizza, sometimes I feel like biryani, sometimes I feel like, the soul will have different. So if you picked up a dua that you're reciting and you're just not connecting to it, and you're turning the pages to see when it's finished, you don't need to finish it.
Okay.
You're not connecting to it. Pick up another dua. Maybe recite Quran, maybe do a 2 rakat salah, do something else. Don't use that as an excuse not to do the extra.
Okay.
But realize that today your soul is not wanting that biryani, it wants pizza. So give it pizza, give it something else.
Yeah.
And there are so many different mustabats that we can be doing. Also the realization that when I don't feel like it is probably when my soul really, really needs it.
Ah, okay, that's interesting. Because I think I remember listening to a lecture where the lecturer said something along the lines of, because we go through peaks and troughs, we should make promises to ourselves to maintain sort of a minimum standard. So we obviously do our 5 prayers a day. but beyond that, there should be, one or two or three, or however many you've got time for, minimum sort of prayers or du'as or acts of worship that you promise yourself, no matter how low in spirituality you're feeling or high, you're going to do those things. Do you think that's a good idea or a good way of maintaining, because when you are feeling it and you're connecting to it, it's great, but when you're not, at least you're doing it so that, you're not dropping below that minimum.
Yeah, I think it is important because it's like exercise.
Yeah.
You even when you don't feel like it, you'll push yourself because you see the benefit of it, and you need to do it. So it's the same sort of principle, but never ever foregoing the wajibat. That's really important. Yeah. But also doing so maybe just ensuring that you connect to the Holy Quran every day. So sometimes when you're on a high, use that that sort of wind to sort of make the most of it and actually do a lot more then to build your spirituality. But when you're on a low, not giving up and realizing that this is when I still, I need it more now than I would before, but maybe not pushing myself so that I resent it, but still doing a little bit. So maybe when I'm on a low, I'll just recite an ayah, but I'm still connecting to the Holy Quran, I'm still picking it up, I'm still reading it. And when I'm on a high, I recite maybe, half a juz or whatever. But it's about, making sure that those connections are there, whether it's with dua, whether it's with the Quran, whether it's with salat, but ensuring that no matter what happens, if I never give up on the wajibat. That's really important. But I think here it's the beautiful thing is at the end where they say that they want to have that connection with Allah.
That's a very nice thing.
I think that shows that their soul is pure. It isn't something where God says that He has put locks on their hearts. It's not sort of lost as such. And the fact that they want that connection, but it's a matter of they don't know how. So understanding that you won't know how. That's where the Creator comes in, and knowing that what He's telling you to do, He's not getting anything from it, but we are. And it's in order for us to reach our potential and our perfection, and therefore we can walk into paradise.
I think it was Ayatollah Behjat maybe that said, someone asked him, how did you get to that level of spirituality? And he said all that he did was do the wajibat and stay away from the haram. And I mean, that is a very powerful statement, to just do the bare minimum but also not do any haram is kind of the peak of the religion in a way, isn't it?
That's all you need, but the problem is when we do it, we don't do it properly. So for example, we'll pray for salah, but our heart and mind won't be there.
It won't be there,
we'll stay away from haram, but we'll do it in a way that we're sliding very close to the line, and maybe sort of stepping across every so often. We'll wear hijab, but maybe a little bit of our hair will show, or our hands will show, or we won't wear socks. So again, it's the idea is to understand that Islam is about submission to the will of Allah. And any disobedience is disobedience. Any sin is disobedience. You can't sit there and say, oh, but this is only a small sin and this is a big sin. There is, it's the biggest sin is disobedience to Allah, and that's where the ego comes in, and that's where then you move away from that sort of connection to Allah, because once the ego is in play, then that connection is very, very difficult to maintain.
My mum always gives the example of, she said, okay, well, I'm your mother and you love me. So if I ask you to do something, whether you want to or not, out of love for me, you'll do it. So that's the same principle that we should apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where, because He loves us 70 times more than our own parents, whether we like it or not, for His love, we should do what He's asked us to do. So that's.
But again, when your mother's asking you, she's asking you from a selfish perspective because she needs you to do that for her. Generally,
no, I mean it could be anything that she's asking you to do.
But generally, as human beings, we need each other, whereas God doesn't need us. So that's even
only
more beautiful.
Benefit,
that what He's asking me to do is for my own benefit. It's not that He's getting anything out of it at all. So even when I ask my children to study, I'm still going to get something out of it. I'm going to get the pride that my children have, qualified. I know they're going to take care of me when they, So there's still some sort of selfish element in it. Whereas with God, there's no selfish element in it at all, and that's so
a beautiful thing.
That everything He's telling me to do, it's for my benefit. And the sad thing is, I think one of the things that I've found as a counsellor is, when I'm counselling youth especially, is when something goes wrong in their life, the first thing to go is salah. They'll stop their salah. Because they feel like God has abandoned them, so why should they bother with God? And they've never, it's because they don't understand that they're not praying because God needs it, they're praying because they need it. And that is the time when they need the salah the most. And to try to explain that to them at that time doesn't work. So it's really important to understand that these things that we're doing, which are wajib, are for our benefit. It's for my soul. My soul absolutely needs this, and if it doesn't get this, then it's going to be ill. It's going to be, damaged. It's going to be destroyed.
Yeah, I was reflecting on something very similar just the other day, and we will move on with the next question in just a minute. But it was, even the mustahab acts, for example, like prolonging your sujood. Sometimes, when you're in a hurry or you need, you just want to sort of almost get your salah over and done with because you've got something on your mind that you need to do. And, I remember there was a time where I was thinking, well, actually, if I prolong my sujood, it's not like I'm doing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a favour by doing that. It's for my own benefit. Yeah. So it shouldn't seem like a chore because no one's forcing me to do it. It's more because it's for my own benefit because, Allah has nothing to gain from it. So that's a really beautiful thing to
And it's also realising that what I'm rushing off to do will probably work out better if I prolong my
No, exactly. That's exactly it. But I think one of the most powerful things you've said just now is that if we really, really realise that anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to do is for our benefit alone, and because Allah can't benefit from it, then that will really give us a new perspective on our ibadah and our worship, inshallah. So no, that's really great. Thank you for that. So this next person has emailed in and said, Dear Masuma, my issue is that I live with a man who is somewhat volatile and ill-tempered. Our marriage is not a happy one, and this fills me with huge grief. If I do even the slightest thing wrong, he threatens to divorce. The truth is, I think he only married me to get a passport. I believe once he has that, he'll be gone and I'll be left holding the baby, literally. What should I do? This situation is affecting my ability to parent properly.
Okay, so there's lots of issues here. First of all, she talks about the fact that he's very volatile, but she's not given much detail on what that encompasses. So, one of the things that I would say is if there is physical abuse there, then she needs to make sure that she's not in a situation where she is in any danger or her child is in any danger. I think that's very, very important to put out there first and foremost. There's no situation where it is okay for a man to hit a woman. When it comes to mental and emotional abuse, it's subjective, so it's much more difficult than to
well, the fact that he threatens divorce if she does the slightest thing wrong, that's not really the best way to deal with a marriage or a situation.
Yeah, and it may just be that they just he just needs to have that conversation. She needs to have that conversation with him to make him understand that when he says that, what it feels like from her perspective, and how he says it and he moves on, but she's still holding on to it, and it's very difficult then for her to have a relationship with him where he's constantly threatening divorce. So
is it just about open communication and
that's one of the things. And again, it may need to be facilitated by someone, because if they're at loggerheads and they're not being able to talk with each other, and then he's very volatile and things that's being said, it may actually worsen the situation. So it may help to have that communication with someone facilitating that conversation.
We often find people, and this might be quite a generalisation, but men in particular who aren't happy to go to counselling sessions or want sort of the issues that is happening between a man and a woman to go out of the couple. How would you recommend someone approach their husband or their wife to actually, if they're facing issues like this, to actually say to them, look, we need help. We can't deal with this just by ourselves.
Exactly how you said it. It's like we need help and we can't deal with it by ourselves. And it's not your problem or my problem. It's both of us together. And actually getting them to understand that it's, I'm not putting the blame on you. It takes two people to make a marriage, and it takes two people to break a marriage. So, can we together go and, seek some help, some professional help? And a lot of the times I think it's a confidentiality perspective that people are worried about. So again, if you're going to a professional, that confidentiality is going to be maintained. I believe very strongly that it is important for you to go, as a Muslim, to go to a Muslim counsellor, because a non-Muslim counsellor will not bring God into the equation, and it's really important. But
sometimes the issue isn't, obviously God is in every sort of issue and problem in life and sphere of life, but sometimes it's not a religious issue in any shape or form. Sometimes it not be,
but even then, it's still marriage is about marriage is never between a man and a woman. It's man, woman, and God. It's always the three entities, you know, in the marriage.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you need marriage counselling, God has to be brought into the picture as well.
Okay.
I think that's really, really important, because it's just that perspective. Even if you feel it's nothing to do with God, if it's nothing to do, but it is. As a Muslim, your whole life revolves around God. All your choices, all your decisions, the way you behave, the way you act, even the way we go to the toilet is dictated by God.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. You know, but it's more, you know, I've seen couples where, for example, they'll go to a Muslim counsellor, and you know, the Muslim counsellor will say, you know, this isn't a reason to fight or get divorced, and you know, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, sacrifice, stay together. And that's not a practical solution to the problem.
I think as a counsellor, it is not up to the counsellor to tell the person what they should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
That has to be the person's choice.
Yeah.
But as a Muslim counsellor, what I will do is I will give you the hadith and the Quranic verses, which tell you that divorce is the thing that is the most disliked by God. So if you're going to go down that route, make sure you've tried all avenues, make sure you've, you know, looked at all different options before you go down that route. And then if you choose to, that is your decision. I can't tell you that it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
The fact that it's allowed means it's okay.
It's okay.
You have to decide whether, you know, this is the route you want to go down, knowing that this is disliked by God. So it's not something you're going to lightly. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And I think most people who go down the divorce route don't go into it lightly.
Of course.
So, you know, it's not something, but I think it is important. I think when you go to someone who hasn't had any counselling education as such, qualification or anything, then you will get people saying, well, that's not a good enough reason.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and I think that's why it's very, very important for you know, any sort of Maulanas and you know, religious scholars who will be asked advice to have even very, very little, but some sort of counselling. Not even qualification, but maybe some courses or something,
totally
because
agree,
it really helps them to sort of, you know, just take a step back and realise that you're not living in their shoes. You can't be giving them answers. And even things like active listening skills and things like that are really, really important. So I think that's really, really important to know.
And this person said that, I think he only married me to get a passport, and I believe once he has that, he'll be gone.
Again, that's an assumption that they're making, and you can't make assumptions like that. So again, having that conversation with him and saying, you know, how do you see this going forward? What's important to you? And she's saying that she'd be left with the baby literally. So obviously they've got a child in the relationship. Whether he has married her for the passport or not, if she walks away from the marriage now, or whether he walks away from the marriage later on, she'll still be left with the baby. So instead of thinking of the what ifs, live in the moment, try to you know, sort out the moment, the now, and try to figure out, you know, how you can be the best person you can be, the best mother, the best wife, the best person for your own self as well. You know, your own sort of own well-being is important as well. I think one of the things that you said is, you know, a lot of the times men refuse to see that there's a problem, and so they won't go for counselling. And I have a lot of women who will come to me with issues in their marriage where their husbands refuse to have, you know, to even acknowledge that there's a problem. And my first question to them is, do you want to stay in this marriage? That has to be your choice. Don't tell me you don't have a choice, because not staying in that marriage is a choice. Walking away is a choice. You decide, do you want to stay in this marriage? Once you have chosen, that empowers you. So I'm not staying in this marriage because, you know, I don't have a choice. I've chosen to stay in this marriage. That already empowers you. Now it's a matter of, okay, let me help you to try to figure out how you can live in this marriage and be happy. And it's not about him. You can't control what someone else does. It's about you and what you're going to do to make yourself happy. So I choose not to let him upset me. I choose not to get pulled into his arguments or his problems. And it's a journey, and it's very, very difficult. But it's having someone there to sort of help you, guide you in, you know, making the right choices and decisions for your own happiness.
Thank you so much, Sister Masuma, for joining us today on our show. So we've come to the end of our show today, and as I said earlier, you can always email in your questions, your problems, whether they're at university or at work or at home, on our email address, which is hearttoheart@safirtv.com. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.